Wow. Definitely, wow. What I could hear underneath that was also Psalm 46:10. Be still and know that I am God. Oh, that is so beautiful. Thank you for blessing me and all of us. Thank you for being here. Thanks for coming again. So this morning, awe, from angst to awe. From angst to awe. So I want to start by thanking Matt Hines. He gave the message last Sunday. And he did such a great job, and I loved his clarity about the tax collector. But the other thing that inspires me about Matt and inspires me about so many of us is many of us that are here, we have stepped away from our theology of origin, right? And that takes so much courage. Would you not agree? It takes so much courage. I think about my own journey. I mean, there are times you lose friends, family, community, arguments with moms. Who can relate to that? Why would you do this? Why would you leave? Why would you not get married in the Catholic Church? Right? Anybody ever have that conversation? Yeah, many times, right? So anyway, it's a courageous thing to step out of that origin, that theology of origin. It's just a courageous thing. And we all know that when we do it, it's because we know that there's something greater within us, right? Would you not agree? There's something greater within us. And I think that Pierre Chardin said it best. Y'all know this quote. He's a 20th century mystic, and he says that we are not humans having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. That changes everything, right? And that phrase, it always resonates with me because it reminds me that I'm not, as Nick says, where's Nick? Raise your hand, Nick. There you are. What does he always say? I love it. I'm not the meat suit, right? We're not the meat suit. We think that's what we are, but that's not what we are. There's something bigger within us. It's the infinite. It's the eternal. And you can't even wrap your head around that. I mean, we're infinite, we're eternal. Like what? Can anyone explain that to me? That's a hard thing to explain, right? But we know that we can feel it. Would you not agree that you can feel it? There are times, just in the meditation, just listen to the quiet. And in that space, that's when you feel it. That's when you know it. I'm connected to something bigger than me, and within me is also that bigness, whatever that bigness is. And so that's what I want to talk about this morning and this month is awe. And I also want to talk about what gets in the way of awe. I know I've shared with y'all what gets in the way for me. Angst, anxiety, fear. For you, put that in the blank. What is it for you that gets in the way of your awe? Just think about it. What gets in the way of your awe? And the reason I'm talking about awe is because I had listened to a podcast several months ago by Dacher Keltner. And he wrote the book. I'll show it to you guys. And it's called Awe. Awe. The New Science of Everyday Wonder and How It Can Transform Your Life. That's the title. And it was on a podcast with Tara Brach, who I've talked to y'all about her before, and I know y'all know she's trained as a psychologist and is also a Buddhist. And so she brings those two knowledges together. She wrote Radical Acceptance, which I love. That's such a great book. Because what she says in that book is that all of us are in this trance of unworthiness, right? We believe we're unworthy. It's a trance. It's not the truth. Again, the personality telling us that. The busy mind, the monkey mind tells us that, right? So anyway, I listened to the podcast. I thought, I've got to get this book because he is a psychologist that actually documents in the lab what awe is. And so that's what I want to talk about this morning. It's like, what does he say that awe is? Because what he ultimately says is that awe can transform us. Isn't that beautiful? So I want to share what he says about that, define that, and then talk about what gets in the way of my awe. And the eclipse will come up, Terry Olson. Not that you took away my thunder. But that will come up. I want to share what gets in the way of my awe, because my hope is that you can put in for you and think about for you what gets in the way of your awe. Because the idea of it is a transformative practice, and it's an everyday practice. And then I also want to think about, I want to share with y'all what I'm now doing so that I can feel awe in my everyday, right? Because eclipses don't happen every day. I mean, generally we have these ordinary things we have to do. I mean, am I the only one that has to wash dishes every day? No. Right? Am I the one that has to do laundry almost every day? So how can we turn that into a spiritual practice? So if you're open to it, just you can even say with me, I awaken to the awe of life. I awaken to the awe of life. I awaken to the awe of life. And just feel that I awaken to the awe of life. Thank you. And this idea also came out of March 31st, my Easter sermon, where remember I talked about ordinary objects and how those ordinary objects can be something to signal us into spiritual practice. I talked about the cup. Remember the cup that Jesus offers to his disciples and said, that cup, we're being called into that cup, to drink of that cup too, to drink and know that God is everywhere. That was his point. It's in you. It's not just in me. It's in all of us. That's the point of the cup. And then think about the thorns. And I'm saying this so you can still think about these everyday objects as a way of doing your practice. The thorns, remember the thorns. If you see them on a rose, it reminds you of cruelty. There's cruelty in the world because the Roman soldiers, they fashioned it into a crown and they put it over his head as a way to humiliate him. So you look at those thorns, and you can think there's cruelty still in the world, and I want to be that place of healing, that place of peace. And then the last one was the stones, and the stones that got rolled away reminds us we can roll away those old thoughts, those old stories, that lack and limitation that doesn't work. And so I want to add to that another way of thinking about how to look at the everyday as a spiritual practice, how to see awe and wonder in every day, in washing your dishes, and doing your laundry, right? And walking the dog, because it's not always fun sometimes. So, are y'all ready for key point about awe and why it matters? So, Dagner Keltner, he devoted his career to mapping emotions with science. So he and his colleagues, they found awe in the lab. And what they found is, and think about yourself, like when you are in front of an ocean, what does your body feel? Think about that. Something that gives you awe. How does your body feel? And this is what they did. They were able to chart, oh, there is this thing called awe, and people feel it in their bodies. He said they get tears, they get chills. Think about that. When something is awe. And so they listen to people's stories. It could be the birth of a baby. It could be the death of a loved one. It could be listening to music, listening to poetry, literature, looking at art, and something would happen in them. And so they wrote down, they categorized what happened. And one of the things he said is these moments of awe, they transform us. Now, why do you think they transform us? Because you're not stuck in the mind, in the egoic mind, right? You've connected to something greater than you. That's the definition of awe. The definition of awe, and he uses Jane Goodall's definition. And Jane Goodall, remember, she studies the chimpanzees, and she talks about how when the chimpanzees see a waterfall, they are absolutely amazed and dancing and speaking in their own language. And for her, it's like they've connected to awe. They've connected and they know there's something outside of themselves, greater themselves. And so that's what awe is. is we know there's something greater than us and we feel connected. And so what he says is he gives us this list of things and ways that it transforms us. He says it quiets the nagging, self-critical, overbearing, status-conscious voice of ourself, our ego. That's a mouthful, right? But think about it. When you stand, whatever awe is for you, for me, standing in front of an ocean, right? You know there's something bigger. When you're looking out, one of the things that Thomas loves to do is, look, there's Jupiter. Look, there's, I don't know, he points them all out. And clearly I don't pay attention. But the moon, I recognize the moon. The others, no. But when you look out to the universe, right, you're reminded, like, I'm this one having this little life. And that's okay. I mean, that feels good to me. Right? Because there's something greater that I can connect to. So the other thing he says is it empowers us to collaborate with others, to open our mind to wonder. Isn't that beautiful? Collaboration. That's why we're here, community. It brings us joy. It brings us meaning. It brings us community. And then, as we know, when we live from that joy, when we live in community, then we will have healthier bodies and more creative minds. Isn't that beautiful? Yeah, it keeps us from that loneliness, the epidemic of loneliness, which is, as y'all know, an epidemic, and it is hard on our bodies. In unity, what we would say is that awe is simply alignment, right? Alignment with the divine. Alignment with what's greater than us, and knowing that we are also that. We are that point of power, connecting with that point of power. So that's awe. Have y'all experienced it?
Yes.
Do you want to keep experiencing it?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Good. We're off to a good start. We're off to a good start. Okay. So I want to share what gets in the way of my awe. And as I do that, I want you to think about what gets in the way of yours. Because the thing is it's an everyday experience. Don't we want to feel that more every day rather than the stuck of whatever it is that's every day? So my stuckness, if that's a word, is, I've shared this with y'all, anxiety, right? I've shared that. That's my angst, fear and anxiety. So the eclipse. My spouse booked a room a year ago to make sure we were going to see the eclipse. He and my son are both amateur astronomers. They absolutely love whatever it is that they love. Whatever it is, the stuff of the universe, the stuff of the stars, the big stuff, right? I mean, they can even tell you about, well, this galaxy does this and this No, I won't try. I get lost. I won't even try. I think I got the basics about what happened in the I think it's something about alignment, earth, moon, sun. We're in alignment. That's the basics, right? Really 101. I got the basics. Thomas had to tell me so many times by the end is like, oh my gosh, do I have to tell you again? Anyway. So it was a big deal in our household. I mean, we got the fancy glasses. It was a big deal. And then I started to hear, and I was going to go, then I started to hear reports, the traffic's going to be really bad. Where do you think my mind went? Like, I'm not going to do that. Because here's what I thought in my mind. It's like, I'm going to be stuck on a freeway. And of course, it's like the worst thing, like on an overpass, really high, and I'm going to be stuck there, and for a long time. And then guess what's going to happen? I'm going to get claustrophobia. So I'm not going to do that, right? And not only am I not going to do that, they're not going to do that. Because guess what? They're not going to be safe, and I'm not going to be safe, so we're not going. That's terrible, right? That's the angst part. That's the angst part, and that's what the mind does. That's what the mind does. So the Friday and the Saturday before, I was suffering. Before we were going to leave Sunday, because the eclipse was on Monday, I was just suffering. I was moody. I was suffering. You probably remember that. I was moody and I was suffering. And guess what happened? I decided to use my practice. Isn't that awesome? I was like, you know what? Let me take my practice to this. Let me take the practice. And so the practice is like, yeah, I feel fear. I'm just going to acknowledge it. I feel fear. Just going to acknowledge it. And I'm going to, and even go to that place of, I'm in the car. I'm feeling the fear. I'm like, all right, I feel the fear. But here's the other piece. Not only do I have the fear, but guess what I also have? The non-fear, the peace. The fear's in me and the non-fear is in me. The spiritual being, right? The spiritual being. So I'm going to turn to that. And so I did. I turned to that. And I said to my spouse, you know what? This is an adventure. This is an adventure. We don't know what the traffic's going to look like. It could look terrible. We don't even know if we're going to be able to see it because the weather, right? Weather is always a piece. We could go there and not see a thing. But it's an adventure. And I'm going to treat it as an adventure. We went. We got a spot at Wimberley Park. There were these college students next to us. They were so fun and so sweet. They had so much food. They gave out stickers, not just to us, but to everyone. And the stickers, by the way, said, "Will bite." They were veterinary stickers for dogs. And I said, you know what? Give that to me. It's appropriate because I will bite. So... And then we went around. I went with one of them, and I would hand out stickers. Everybody would come. You want a sticker? Do you want a sticker? We got to chat with them, got to know all of their majors, what they're studying. They're a wonderful young group of people. To the left of us was a young man who had a huge telescope. Huge, like a bucket one. That's what it's called. Like a bucket telescope. Yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing. And then we got 2 minutes of totality, not 4, Terry Olson, 2. And the other thing I didn't tell y'all about, angst. Again, angst, I was scared to wear the glasses. Why? Because I was going to go blind. This is where my mind goes, you guys. I'm not kidding you. And I have all these practices and these tools, but this is what my mind does. I saw my son wear the glasses, saw my husband wear them. Like, I really don't think y'all should be wearing those. But I thought, you know what? I'm going to wear them. So I put them on, and guess what I could see? It was beautiful. I was in awe, in absolute awe. And then we had the 2 minutes, and everyone was just, right? I mean, you just can't even explain, just in awe. It was quiet. The dogs didn't bark, nothing. It was quiet. It was beautiful. And then after 2 minutes, when it was back to light, everyone clapped. It was so beautiful. And here we were in a park filled with people. And the point, which is exactly what Terry says, is connection, community, something bigger than us that we can celebrate. It was perfect. It was beautiful. So that was my journey of angst to awe. And those kinds of things don't happen every day, right? So how do we do this? How do we think about awe in the everyday? Because we don't always have total eclipses. So I've heard. So to encourage myself to see awe, I thought I would come up with a list of things that I can't do without. Because I thought, I bet those things that I can't do without are probably things that inspire me and that help me feel awe. So I'm going to read y'all my list. And as I read you mine, I want you to think about what your list is. Because these are everyday things. So 1, my prayer meditation practice. Sounds like the ocean waves, rain and thunderstorms, tree leaves rustling in the wind. Smells like rain, smells like the earth, and smells like anything freshly baked. A cup of hot tea, especially in a china cup, and especially with lots of honey. Those stories, those music, visual arts remind me that life is good and beautiful. Friends and family who remind me when I forget that I'm loved, when I forget that I'm lovable. Journals and pens, I would be so lost if I didn't have somewhere to just write my thoughts. trees, especially big ones, because they have saved my life more than once. And then, of course, dogs, because guess what dog spells backwards? Especially dogs. So I encourage you to write down your list and just ask yourself, what is it that I can't do without? Because whatever that is, I bet you it gives you that sense of wonder and that sense of awe, and I bet it's something simple. So I want to end with Mary Oliver, American poet. She is someone that always found awe in the ordinary and the everyday. And in her poem, she writes, "Every day I see or hear something that more or less kills me with delight, that leaves me like a needle in the haystack of light. It was what I was born for, to look, to listen, to lose myself in this soft world, to instruct myself over and over in joy and acclamation. Nor am I talking about the exceptional, the fearful, the dreadful, the very extravagant, but of the ordinary, the common, the very drab, the daily presentations. Oh, good scholar, I say to myself, how can you help but grow wise with such teachings as these, the untrimmable light of the world, the ocean's shine, the prayers that are made out of grass?" Not beautiful? It's everywhere. It's everywhere. Let us be alert to it. Let us awaken to it, and let us know, as our poet in residence said, we are that awe. We are that magnificence. I love y'all so much. Amen.